Welcome to my vision analysis on ancient Greek art. My name is Mel Perez. This is for Art Survey 1, and we shall get started. So first, I'm going to start with geometric period. So basically, this is like early like development of Greek art. And I just want to first point out when I first think of geometric, I think of geometric shapes, and it will make sense as I progress along about the geometric period. So a lot of it of we see geometric period art pieces is that they have they're very ritualistic, a lot of uh, heroic stuff going on, and the pieces, symbols, rituals, chariots, horses. We see a lot of horses. That's a lot of horses and vases. And main media that they like to use is terracotta, bronze casting, and gold. There's also point out there's absence like of sculptures and monumental stone sculptures, things like that, simply because a lot of these were constructed with materials like wood. So wood is very perishable, and because it can burn, it's also a natural, probably decompose. Who knows what? Who knows what? But it's very not there. But if you do see a lot of bronze things and clay bases, which will kind of lead on to one of the biggest things in Greek art. First piece, terracotta piece, I probably did not say this right. So, as I pointed out before, as geometric shapes, you see these zigzag lines going on in this beautiful box, definitely from a wealthy woman that was used for cosmetics or personal items. So you can see, I guess it's very significant piece simply because you could see part of the Greek culture, part of they cared about their appearances and their practice, like their cosmetics. So you can see as we go along Greek art how I guess the idealized looks that they have. So next piece is the in-class piece, which is a terracotta crater. And as you can see, it's telling a story of a ritual going on, horses, chariots, once again, death, and we also see geometric shapes, very abstract shape. So very geometric in their shapes. So we're gonna compare these two. So one thing I do see in common, see like this little line, zigzag line. It's like thinking about how I guess the chevron shape or the checker pattern that was popular back in these times has been everywhere. I kind of think of this probably these kind of line shape going on around this box. Probably same kind of idea. As you see, it's also in the lip of the crater. Geometric shapes. The box doesn't necessarily tell like a story, a story or any going on compared to the crater, but it does reflect a lot of Greek culture, early Greek culture. Proceed on Greek Orientalizing period. So we see this is kind of like the transition between the geometric to then the archaic period. So just to have an idea where I just want to point out that Greek art has always been influenced by their neighbors. They always have these influences, like especially during Asia Minor, this area, which is modern day Turkey, and a lot of Egyptian, which each is right here. So it makes sense where they borrow these in the art, Mesopotamian art, Egyptian art. So first piece, we have this wonderful picture of these animals, a lot of imagery going on here. So this is definitely probably used for wine and for gatherings. Basic things that you probably use for a picture. Yeah, next piece, which is this vase, this beautiful vase that also has depicting a story going on. So we can see a lot comparing, you know, from previous period as I go along compare these two. From it's moving a tad bit more naturalistic, so it's not as abstract. You can still see kind of geometric shapes going on there, but it's not as abstract as we see in periods. Period as we transition to the archaic period, which this is a lot when the geometric patterns we know now is not much there. It's a lot more naturalistic going on. And I think this is a very fun time period because this is when they start experimenting a lot of their art in their art. You see a lot, there's a big use of black figure pottery, which I will proceed on. Not this, by the way. Oh wait, let me go back. Let me go back. I ruined the joke. I want to talk about the course, not this course. This course, which is the ideal young youth, which we can see is definitely a lot influenced from a lot of Mesopotamian figures and also Egyptian art. I just want to point out because, yeah. Anyways, I shall proceed on to the terracotta funerary plaque, which I could see. We could see it's also we can see reflection of chariots, horses, always a common teeth, always a common teeth in this ancient Greek art. As you see, a lot more transition of naturalistic. It's still schematic, how we see before, but still pretty naturalistic. And how they use a lot more curvilinear lines. You see how they use these lines, this drapery going on to kind of give form to the shapes. So it's really neat thing. Definitely probably used on some funerary place attachment. But this is a small piece of it. And we're going to talk about another in-class piece, which is a Dionysus vase. When I think of Greek Dionysus, I probably not saying it right, but basically when I think about this Greek god, I think about wine. So I assume this was used for wine, a wine vessel, and probably various other liquids, who knows what. Once again, showing about part of big major part of Greek culture is their beliefs of their heroes and Greek gods, battles, chariots. As we compare this, you can still see that both the naturalism, the curves and her lines, and as they moved away from the abstract. And we proceed to the classical period, which is this is like I guess you could say the peak of Greek art because this is where they refine things. This is when they made Doric and Ionic features in pillars, which is I think this is very fascinating thing. And when I think of classical period, I think of the Parthenon because this is what you think about when you think of Greek art, the Parthenon. And this is just the peak of Greek art and how they put in science and the math into this and the art into development and it's absolutely like very naturalistic and idealized. So we're going to the first thing, terracotta plate, and also I guess one thing I to point out in the classical period is the development of red figure technique, which is used in terracotta plate. So we could see the naturalism going on, the shapes, the figures, of the lines. Probably we could see how it's a bird, interesting at riding a chicken, a rooster. So probably, and also how it's like a young man going on it. Figure going on to this cup, which is the bottom part of cup. And with this red figure technique, probably used for, social events, special events, and used definitely for drinking. Yes, definitely. I'll compare these two. Both of them very similar in a sense how they use red figure technique and naturalism figures, and how they definitely moved away from abstraction and how it's very to convey stories going on here, which kind of leads to kind of the main or overarching ideas as we look here is that these people, the Greeks, were very ritualistic. That's something we see in their art progress. They always tell their stories about their beliefs, especially their mythology. You always see it reflected about their Greek gods and everything, and their idealization of how, I guess, you kind of understand how they value a lot in their beauty standards and idealization, which I think it's, if you think back, it's something that we still do today, and how they also experimented and were influenced by their surrounding neighbors to develop this unique style that we know that's a traditional Greek art. And one thing that I find interesting how this is a Jefferson Memorial, how it's influenced by beautiful Greek art that we know, which I think is something kind of cool and thing to think about how it's still on today. It's still influenced. It's very impactful. So a lot of this Greek art it still impacts today. We still use it. We still think about it. So appreciate that. And these are all my sources, my index.